The Labour leader cannot skulk in the shadows for fear of upsetting voters by taking on anti-Semitism, Carole Malone warns. Keir Starmer tells us time and again that he's rooted out and erased all traces of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. That's until yet another Labour politician, and it happens with monotonous regularity, says something so hideously anti-Semitic that it causes a national. And when that happens, what does the great Sir Keir, the man who's always telling us what a great leader he'll be, do? Well, instead of coming straight out and condemning the particular anti-Semite in question, he goes into hiding hoping it'll all just die down and he can carry on kidding us that he's dealt with the Jew haters in his party. It's exactly what he did this week when the abhorrent Labour candidate for Rochdale, Azhar Ali, was recorded saying, at a meeting jam-packed with other party members, that Israel had deliberately allowed Hamas to massacre over 1,200 of its own people to green-light the attack on Gaza. Ali made this hideous proclamation with zero evidence. His obvious hatred of Israel was enough to convince his pea-brain that it was true. And how interesting it is that none of the other Labour Party members at that meeting called him out on his vile claims. Did they also believe Israel did this? And if they didn't, why did no one call him out on it? When someone passed on a recording of what he'd said to a newspaper, Ali started backpedaling for all he was worth. He made the kind of groveling apology that would make most people But of course, his apology was worthless. He only made it because he'd been found out and because he didn't want to lose his chance of being Labour MP for Rochdale in the forthcoming by-election. But of course, it's now clear the man isn't fit to be an MP, yet still he tried to excuse his abhorrent claims saying he'd fallen for a conspiracy theory. The kind of loony conspiracy theory that's peddled by morons in the dark corners of the internet. This confirms that as well as being unfit for parliamentary office, Ali is also as thick as me. But Starmer's behaviour in this shaming episode was nearly as unsavoury as Ali's comment. For an entire day, the man who is forever trying to convince us he's a true leader skulked in the shadows and said nothing. Party officials did the talking for him and said they were standing by the odious Ali and that he was a really nice bloke, not an anti-Semite at all. Anyway, he had apologized. Wasn't that enough? Well, actually no, it wasn't, and it wasn't until much later in the day when the clamour became so deafening that Starmer had no choice but to come out and face it. The result being that the party withdrew its support for Ali. Of course, it's clear why they didn't want to condemn him. They thought it would upset other Muslim communities and they didn't want to do that so close to an election. They also did not want to upset the folk of Rochdale, where a third of all voters are Muslim and are all likely to vote Labour. So for all his pretense at principle, Starmer chose political expediency. Does the Labour Party and Sir Keir in particular think all an anti-Semite has to do is apologise for making anti-Semitic remarks and will believe that they do not actually hate Jews? And if, as Starmer says, he's rooted out anti-Semitism, how come the party had to suspend MP Kate Ossamore just last month for saying Gaza should be added to the list of genocides? Last year, Diane Abbott was suspended for suggesting that Jews faced no more discrimination than people with ginger hair. Before that, Jeremy Corbyn was suspended for saying anti-Semitism inside the party had been dramatically overstated for political reasons. How many more have to have the whip removed before Sir Keir realises that he cannot say with any authority that he's rooted out anti-Semitism?